Attacks perpetrated yesterday against the United States of America. The Council agreed that if it is determined that this attack was directed from abroad against the United States, it shall be regarded as an action covered by Article 5 of the Washington Treaty, which states that an armed attack against one or more of the Allies in Europe or in North America shall be considered an attack against them all.
Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld, meantime, warning U.S. troops difficult times may be ahead. In a taped message, he said much more would be expected of American forces in the weeks and the months to come. The defense chief said he will face what he called terrible enemies in an entirely new kind of conflict.
We are, in a sense, seeing the definition of a new battlefield in the world, a 21st century battlefield. And it is a different kind of conflict. It is something that is not unique to this century, to be sure, but it is, given our geography and given our circumstance, it is, in a major sense, new for this country.
Secretary Rumsfeld was at the Pentagon when that attack happened. Emergency services say there is now little chance of finding any survivors in the rubble, but they're still searching for victims. That operation's still underway. For the latest, let's join Mark Potter, who is at the Pentagon. Are the rescue and search operations actually underway overnight at this time, Mark?
Yeah, as we speak, there are workers out there right now at the Pentagon, and as you said, they do not expect to find any survivors. And they have revised the death toll, the estimated death toll. They're guessing that around 200 people died here, including the 64 aboard the plane. That's down considerably from estimates earlier that went as high as 800. Now, early this morning, as we speak, we're looking at a live shot here. Workers and firefighters are still on the scene, sifting through the rubble, looking for victims, shoring up some of the structures. FBI agents have also been on scene looking for evidence for their criminal case. In effect, what we are looking at here is one big crime scene. Officials are also looking for the black boxes from the plane, the voice and data recorders, and they consider the discovery of those black boxes, whenever that occurs, to be extremely important because it may help answer questions about what happened here, and specifically whether the hijackers may have originally targeted the White House before turning the plane toward the Pentagon, as has been suggested. Now, we do have a graphic, if we can show that shows the area of the Pentagon that was affected by the attack and by the very, very intense fire afterward. You can see that about half the building here is shut down. It's sealed off. The corridors are blocked by armed guards. The Pentagon, however, despite this, says that it expects to be fully operational later this morning, although, as you can imagine, people are going to have to be doubling up in offices because so much of the building, as we can see here, has been cordoned off. Earlier today, and you can see it here, that flag was unfurled by workers. That occurred during the time that the president was here. And as for what the U.S. military is doing right now, aircraft and warships are in a defensive position along the east and west coasts of the United States, also in Hawaii. And the military is still in full control of all U.S. airspace, but is preparing to hand that back to the FAA perhaps later today. Back to you.
All right, CNN's Mark Potter at the Pentagon. Thanks very much.
U.S. intelligence agencies are working their contacts all around the globe, north to Canada and oceans away in the Middle East. This as the scene continues in Lower Manhattan, the painstaking search there for minute details, for any survivors, for, as we have noted earlier, the victims of Tuesday's tragedy.
And you can see in this live picture we're showing you right now from New York, there's still a lot of steam, a lot of smoke in that area where the search and rescue operation is going on at this time. Pretty tricky down there, Jim, pretty dangerous still. Some buildings surrounding that area have been damaged as well. There's concern about those buildings and how stable they are, too.
Well, as all of that's going on, we said there's a global search underway. Information, anything that they can glean. The FBI has had some early success in its probe of Tuesday's four-pronged attack. Agents have turned up names and physical evidence in several domestic locations. Chillingly, it appears that several of the hijackers who seized the controls of those doomed aircraft may have received pilot training on U.S. soil, and we get more on that story from Mike Betcher.
From Maine to Florida, the investigation moved quickly along the eastern seaboard.
We have, in the last 24 hours, taken the manifests and used those as an evidentiary base, and have talked to many of the families of the victims, and have successfully, I believe, identified many of the hijackers on each of the 4 flights that went down.
Federal investigators now believe they know the identity of 4 men capable of piloting the 2 planes that left Boston and crashed into the World Trade Center. The key, rental cars parked by the suspected terrorist at Portland International Airport and Boston's Logan Airport, each yielding clues that ultimately led investigators to flight schools in Florida.
A number of the suspected hijackers were trained as pilots in the United States.
Rental records for the car left in Portland brought investigators to residences in Vero Beach, Florida, which were searched by the FBI. Inside one house, pictures of Adnan Bukhari and a pilot certificate from a Florida flight school in his name. Also found inside the residence, another pilot certificate for Amir Abbas Bukhari. Another certificate indicates that at least one of the Bukharis participated in a program to help train Saudi Airlines employees. Federal investigators believe the 2 men are brothers and prime suspects. FBI agents also visited other Florida locations after gathering clues from the second rental car parked at Boston's Logan Airport that led to the identity of 2 more men, also pilots, Mohammed Atta and Marwan Youssef Al-Shehi, who received at least some flight training at Huffman Aviation in Venice, Florida. Charles Voss is a bookkeeper at Huffman Aviation who briefly allowed the 2 men to stay at his house.
They were, like I said, students, and they arrived over there a year ago. It was in last July. And when they first arrived, they had no place to stay. They just popped in pretty much, as I recall, unannounced. And so we provided them for the benefit of the flight school, provided them a place to stay for a few days.
At least one person believed to be an acquaintance of the Bukharis has been taken into custody for questioning.
There have been occasions where we have interviewed individuals and come to find that the individual is out of status and that individual has been detained on an immigration hold. But there have been no arrests relating to these hijackings at this point.
Having found the 4 men, federal investigators believe piloted the 2 hijacked jets into the World Trade Center towers. They are now scouring Florida flight schools, searching for the pilots of the other 2 jetliners, one that crashed in Pennsylvania, the other that rammed the Pentagon. Mike Betcher, CNN, Atlanta.
The Justice Department's Office of Victims of a Crime has set up a hotline there for tips that could help prevent a terrorist act. You can call 1-800-483-5137. Families and relatives of those that have been missing since these attacks, here's a number that you can call, 1-800-331-0075.
Well, and Jim, you know that a call went out for people to donate blood because of the number of casualties in this. Well, U.S. medical officials now say that the voluntary donations have been so massive that they've provided enough blood for the victims of the attacks. But blood can be kept and stored for no more than 42 days, so more may be needed in about 2 to 8 weeks from now, so keep that in mind. Donors, especially those with type O and Rh negative blood, which emergency workers still say that they do need, should call 1-888-HELP-NOW. Well, one of the hijacked planes is providing investigators with clues about what exactly happened on board. CNN has obtained a partial transcript of what air traffic controllers heard taking place in the cockpit of United Airlines Flight 93. That is the plane that crashed in rural Pennsylvania. Shouting is heard in that cockpit while United Airlines Flight 93 is over the Cleveland area. Someone yells, "Get out of here." The microphone is turned off, then it's switched back on. Some scuffling is heard. Again, a voice yells, "Get out of here." The microphone's again turned off. The pilot, Captain Jason Dahl, is not heard from again. And then when the microphone is turned back on, someone is heard speaking English with what is described as an Arabic accent. He tells the 38 passengers, quote, "There is a bomb on board. This is the captain speaking. Remain in your seat. There is a bomb on board. Stay quiet. We are meeting their demands. We are returning to the airport." The microphone then goes off, and that plane crashes shortly after in that field in Burrell, Pennsylvania. Well, it is thought that Flight 93 was destined for a well-known target in the Washington area. That plan may have actually been thwarted by the passengers. Another thing we do know, one of the passengers called his mother from a mobile phone. He said that the male passengers had voted to try to overwhelm the hijackers once they figured out what was going on. Some say that that struggle may have caused the plane's mysterious crash in that field. Jim.
And they found a black box on that aircraft, and they're going to be getting more and more information from all of this that will be coming in. We'll continue to follow that. But right now, let's go back, get a little bit of a closer look at how New York City is coping with these sweeping attacks. We return to Garrick Utley. He's right there in Manhattan. Garrick.
Yes, Jim, and once again, not just people here in New York, but across the nation, because we want to take just a moment and raise a question, which is going to be very important for the United States in the weeks and months to come. How are Americans going to react to these terrorist attacks? Is it going to be sort of a broad stroke? As somebody said a moment ago in one of those reports, why don't we just go out and nuke them? I'm so angry. I'm so bitter. We've got to have action. Or we'll be more disciplined and focused and really be patient and wait until the administration feels it has fingered who caused these attacks in Virginia and here in New York City. And one example of how that may or may not go occurred in Washington Square this evening. We were there about half an hour ago, and our correspondent Jody Ross is there once again. And one of the things you mentioned, Jody, is that you did not detect bitterness there. You detected great emotion, but not anger. Why?
It's true, Garrick. It's a peaceful group here tonight. They've come together to sort of sing, grieve together, mourn together. They're hoping for a peaceful retaliation to all of this. They're not looking for violence. They think now is a time for prayer, for discussion, for healing. A couple of hours ago, there were hundreds of people gathered here, again, comforting each other, hugging each other, sharing their pain.
So proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, moonlight was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave?
Well, like everyone else, it's a terrible thing that's happened, and I think it's better if we all get together.
It still doesn't seem real. It can't be. This doesn't happen in New York. This doesn't happen in the United States.
There was chanting along with the singing tonight. We heard renditions of Amazing Grace and Blowing in the Wind, We Shall Overcome, and Give Peace a Chance. At one point, the group together sang the national anthem and then cheered. Again, a peaceful feeling here, a somber one, but a non-violent one. These people want a peaceful resolution. They've said they've had enough violence for the time being and are now hoping that things can sort of calmly resolve themselves. This group of people also said that they will sit through the night, at least the people that are here continue to sit through the night, burn candles, talk to each other, comfort each other. We've still seen people arriving. The longer we stay, the more that people do come. And one interesting thing about being here tonight is the smell in the air. You know, all night we've been unable to escape that pungent and bitter smell of smoke. But here with these scented candles burning, it's actually a relief from all of that, a sort of mini oasis, I've been saying, in the middle of chaos and destruction. A really nice change from the way things have been. Maybe this is maybe this attitude here, this feeling here, can come on strong, overpower what's going on in the city right now. At least that's what the people here hope. Garrick, back to you.
Jody Ross, thank you very much. Perhaps, maybe, or perhaps maybe not. Many government officials are very keenly aware, particularly in such a multi-ethnic city as New York City, of the ramifications of hate, anger, and bitterness. Certainly Arab Americans in this country, because so many of the suspicions are pointed towards Arabs or Muslims as those behind these attacks, are very much on guard. This